Howdy folks, we're looking at Edge magazine number 13, October 1994, discussing the future of interactive entertainment. And we see Earthworm Jim on the cover with what seems to be a 3D rendering, which I find odd because the game was a 2D sprite-based game. Apparently this was given to Edge magazine by, let's see, what's their name again? This always takes me a while. Somebody called Tim Stephen, who worked for Soft Image. And this issue indeed features two parts about Earthworm Jim, an interview with the makers, and also a review of the game. So, yeah. Will it break new ground though? No, it's more like the logical evolution of the Aladdin game for Genesis. It was a big thing though, Earthworm Jim at the time. So, as promised, there's talk about the new graphic possibilities, which would be at an exhibition, I forgot the name. And the funny thing about this starting column is that they discuss how the actors in Hollywood, they're going to be asking for less pay now because of competition with 3D images. Well, we know now that that's not the case, but at the time it seemed a possibility. So yeah, we see games for future systems. What was this game again? Oh yeah, this is also a Sega game using the Model 2 board, which was also used for Daytona. And we see Ecstatica, a survival horror game, also from France and England, with interesting looking graphics using ellipses, I think they're called. They're like, not like polygons, but they're like these circles. Yeah, if you zoom in, you can see that everything is made of spheres, which has a certain look to it. Okay. So, the cutting edge news, Sony reveals their PlayStation plans. I think this is going to become Moto Town GP or whatever, and at the time still called Poly Poly Circus Grand Prix. And I don't remember this being an important title for the PlayStation 1, but they talk about it as if it were. And I don't think this game was ever released, this fighting game with Gundam. Maybe it was, maybe only in Japan. So, Feel the Soma, some images. And of course, Ridge Racer. The Saturn is on track. We have Daytona, a newer version of Virtua Fighter, Clockwork Knight still getting praise, and Panzer Dragoon, one of the most beautiful games on the Saturn. Also talk about the Model 2. Which I believe would be Sega's most successful model. I mean, the Model 3 was for Virtua Fighter 3 and I believe Sega Rally 2. But Model 2 was where it's at with Daytona. And apparently this tank game, what's it called? Desert Tank. It looks fantastic according to these pictures, but I've never seen it in real life. Look at that. It's really big. Nope. Can we zoom in? Oh. The Model 1 sports a helicopter game, it's not it's an airplane game where you can fight against each other. Looks pretty cool. I thought Virtual On was pretty cool, so that might have been like that. So SIGGRAPH, that was the exhibition the previous edition of Edge mentioned, and yeah, it's a lot of beautifully rendered images you see. With a game called Fantasy 500. I couldn't find anything about that on the internet. Here's a commercial for Mortal Kombat 2. Might be fun to look that up. They have some actors. This might be Sub-Zero. Yeah. So, SIGGRAPH showing off bottles. That looks quite realistic, don't you agree? So the future possibilities of 3D graphics. Okay. Namco apparently had or still has an amusement park. It's if you Google Namco amusement park, you'll find it, and I think it's called Namja or something. And at the time, it was called Egg World Empire. I don't know why it's called, what it has to do with eggs. But they're also showing off one of the attractions, some kind of flight game. The CGI Onyx-driven ride Hornet 1, the star attraction. So go there if you're in Tokyo. The FES is the British equivalent to the E3, and Edge magazine was promoting it, but it seems like a rehash of what we saw at the CES a month ago. So some of the latest news: Ridge Racer 2 being shown, which would become Ridge Racer Revolution on the PlayStation 1. So 3DO having Super Turbo, and the 32X would be having Virtual Racing, and it's a very good conversion. It's not arcade perfect, but it was the best until there was I think a PlayStation 3 version or something. Anyhow. Here we have Bomberman with 10 players at the same time. I don't know which system this was, though, but you could play, I believe, up to 8 or maybe 16 players on Saturn. So, yeah. I always preferred 5-player Bomberman, though. Too many players, you just die. And it's fun to win every once in a while. Okay, letters complaining about this cover not featuring any graphics. Too much emphasis on Daytona. Some talk about why Star Fox is called Starving in Europe because of an older game on the Amstrad called Star Fox. What's this game? Stunt Racer or something? Can I get it? It's called Club Drive, which would be released for the Jaguar, apparently. Don't know it. On to the previews. So, Metal Jacket for the PlayStation 1. I don't remember this game. I've never been interested in mech games, so maybe it was good. Maybe it was popular in Japan. I don't know. Nosferatu, released for the Super Nintendo. And I'm surprised Edge spends 2 pages on it. It has an atmosphere, but other than that, it's a pretty bland game. Good animation. And what I find interesting is that Edge says that it could even drive a stake into Capcom's Demon Crest. Well, Demon Crest wasn't a big game, to be honest, even though it played very well. Nosferatu, even less. Still worth looking into. I mean, look at that fantastic background, right? So, 2 golf games for the computer, 1 British, 1 American. And, well, I don't recall these games. So, yeah. Here we have, at the time, the best racing game released. I mean, Daytona was a better arcade racer, but if you wanted to have something that was like a driving sim that was also fun, you should have gone for Need for Speed on the 3DO. And the images looked fantastic. I believe these cars were completely 3D modeled. That's why they could spin around like that. So, yeah, amazing use of polygons on the 3DO. And good use of color. It played well, too. There was some funny FMV in the game. So, maybe the best game for the 3DO. Part 2 wasn't very good, but Part 3 for the PlayStation was good, thanks to the chasing of the police. And then there was Need for Speed Underground. Okay, so Little Big Adventure, quite a big game in Europe. I don't hear many Americans talking about this game. It was for the PC, made by Electronic Arts, and it's an action-adventure game with puzzles. I guess kind of like Zelda, except it didn't have that charm, and I believe it had levels. So a lot more talking with people too. I thought it was altogether too bland to spend much time on. Maybe I should have played it longer at the time. But people loved it, especially Edge. And, well, it had some interesting graphics. So that kind of stuck out. A game with quite a legacy would be Rayman, here being shown for the Jaguar, but it would also be released for the PlayStation, a 3DO, Saturn. I bet there was a Game Boy Advance version. Shamefully never made it to the Super Nintendo. And it's an all-around good platforming game. But most of all, it has fantastic looking imagery. And really looks great. It's just a nice game to be in. Rayman 2 was 3D. People like that too, but I think Rayman really got back to fame with the 2D version again, which was, I believe, for the PlayStation 3. Rayman Origins or something. I don't know. I played a little bit. I thought this looks fantastic, but didn't get into it. So, A-Train Part 4. The Japanese love their train games. Edge spends 2 pages on this game. The novelty this time would be that you can actually ride your train through the cities you make. So it's a kind of like SimCity, with more of a focus on trains. I believe there's a game on the 3DS that's a lot like this, because I see it in the store every once in a while. So Ecstatica with their cute looking graphics, and it was a good game at the time. Not much else to say yet. Kind of the similar vein to Alone in the Dark. These were the same people who made it. The people who made Alone in the Dark worked on this one. So they went from 3D polygons to ellipses, as they're called. And 6 pages is spent on this game. So... and now we're at test screen. So let's look at Earthworm Jim, right? No, first Road Rash. So the 3DO hits keep coming. Road Rash at the time was probably the best game for it. Also made by Electronic Arts. And this game used sprites for the main characters. So at times the game looked rather 2D. But the environments were 3D and it looked fantastic. I remember playing this game. And Edge gives it a 9. I think it's a bit high. It should have been an 8. And in time it's more like a 7 because we don't care much about graphics anymore. But it plays better than the Genesis version, I can tell you that. So that's a good thing. And it's a shame the series has ended. I always like the game's attitude. And the multiplayer for ways of playing. Oh, commercials. Here we have the entertainment show coming up. Hey, Earthworm Jim. So, one of the better platforms for the 16-bit systems, with the infamous cow launching. I believe this is level 1. And what you do, come on, make it sharp. Do we get a sharp image? Well, you cut the, you shoot down the refrigerator, it lands on this plank, and the cow gets launched. And spoiler alert, just when you save the princess, the cow falls on the princess, and your whole journey has been for naught. So, great animation. The question is, which version's better, the Super Nintendo or the Genesis? And I recall the Genesis version having an extra level, or was it the other way around? But the Super Nintendo had better colors. Interestingly, though, the Genesis has, despite having a less good sound chip, some people prefer the Genesis version of the soundtrack because the techno vibe going for it. But I still think the Genesis version is better because a lot of little things have been cut away in the Super Nintendo version, probably because of memory issues. So I don't know if this is a comparison. Do we see big differences? Well, it looks like here you prefer the Super Nintendo version because of better coloring, maybe? More parallax? I remember looking at the two and thinking the Genesis version was better, but I can't remember why exactly. So, nevertheless, both versions are great. And if you're into 16-bit platforming, a must check out. It's a bit difficult at times. And that'll be it for this time. We'll see each other in part 2.